Cellular respiration. It seems a bit daunting, but it can be easily understood. Most of cellular respiration occurs here, in these things called mitochondria. The mitochondria is often called the powerhouse of the cell for this reason. Some processes, like glycolysis, occur here, in the cytosol. The cytosol is the fluid space between different organelles. Organelles literally translate to small organs. They are like the organs of a cell. So what is cellular respiration? Well, it's the oxidation of organic compounds that occurs within cells producing energy for cellular processes, according to dictionary.com. That definition is confusing as heck, so I'll translate. Cellular respiration takes food, like this hamburger, and turns it into ATP. ATP turns into energy. You use energy to do things, like walk and talk and sleep and eat and sing and everything. Wait, ATP? What's that? ATP's full name is adenosine triphosphate. It looks like this, but don't let that scare you. Think of ATP like a battery or an energy drink. It provides the energy which powers the cell. How does it do this? Think of a gun. You pull the trigger, which creates a spark, which ignites the gunpowder, which explodes. Bang! The energy from the gunpowder explosion is transferred into the bullet, which shoots out of the gun. ATP is like the gunpowder. When it ignites, its bond's broken, the energy from it is released, allowing you to do things, like the bullet being released from the gun. After ATP is used, it becomes ADP. ADP is kind of like ATP's ugly sister. Sorry, ADP. Its full name is adenosine diphosphate. It doesn't really do much until it is recharged, think back to the battery, back into ATP, which can be used again. Cellular respiration can be broken down into 3 steps: glycolysis, the Krebs cycle, and the electron transport chain. The first step of cellular respiration is glycolysis. Glycolysis literally translates into splitting glucose, which is basically what it does. So glycolysis starts off with this cool stuff called glucose, which to me looks like a flying saucer. We get glucose from food. It's a carbohydrate, but don't let that scare you. Carbohydrates are not, in fact, the terrible bits of evil which increase belly fat. They make ATP, which powers the cell. So before glucose can be split, it needs to get 2 phosphates. These come from 2 ATPs. Think of investing money. You put some in to get more out. It's the same in glycolysis. We invest 2 ATP to get 4 ATP. So after the glucose gets its phosphates, it's karate chopped into 2 pyruvic acids. The pyruvic acids will be of use later in the Krebs cycle. Now, glycolysis is an anaerobic reaction, which means without air, kind of like me in PE. Glycolysis doesn't need oxygen to function, sort of like I don't need PE to tell me that I'm not an athlete. Meanwhile, another reaction is taking nicotinamide adenosine dinucleotide, we'll call it NAD for short, and giving it some of its favorite things, hydrogen and electrons. Once it gets these, it turns into its friendly cousin, NADH. NADH is the postman of the cell. It delivers high-energy electrons to the ETC, but more on that later. To review, glycolysis produces 4 ATP, minus the 2 ATP we invested to give glucose its phosphates to give us a net total of 2 ATP. Now that may not seem like much to you, but it also produces 2 pyruvic acids and some NADH, so don't count it out. Glycolysis is also special because it occurs in the cytosol, fluid space between organelles. All other processes in cellular respiration occur in the mitochondria, the powerhouse organelle. The next step of cellular respiration is the Krebs cycle, also known as the citric acid cycle. The Krebs cycle was named after Hans Krebs, the guy who discovered it. Remember those 2 pyruvic acids that we got from glycolysis? Remember how I said we'd be using them later? Well, we're using them. Welcome to later. The 2 pyruvic acids combine with 2 molecules of oxygen, which we breathe in, to create 2 molecules of carbon dioxide, which we breathe out. This makes a nice little system. They also create this cool stuff called acetyl coenzyme A, or acetyl-CoA. The acetyl-CoA combines with this stuff called oxaloacetic acid, which has a really complex name but not a complex image, to create citric acid. Hey, wait, isn't that the stuff in oranges? Yes. Citric acid works with enzymes, which are proteins that cause and speed up reactions, to give a molecule of ADP a phosphate, effectively recharging it back into ATP. Phosphates are like the energy in a battery or the bullets in a gun. This process cuts off a few carbons, which combine with the oxygen that we breathe in to make carbon dioxide, which we breathe out, from the citric acid so that it becomes oxaloacetic acid, so it can be combined with acetyl-CoA, and so on. It works as a cycle, hence the name, the citric acid cycle. To review, the Krebs cycle takes the pyruvic acids that we got from glycolysis and chops them into carbon dioxide and acetyl-CoA, which combines with oxaloacetic acid to make citric acid. Citric acid works with enzymes to give ADP a phosphate, turning it into ATP. This turns the citric acid back into oxaloacetic acid, which combines with acetyl-CoA, and the cycle continues. This seems awfully complicated, but all we've got is one ATP to show for it. Thankfully, the Krebs cycle turns twice for every glucose molecule used, and so we get 2 ATP. So far, we've split up some sugar, made some orange juice, and turned NAD into a postman. What's next? The final step of cellular respiration is the electron transport chain, or ETC for short. Remember putting a spring on top of the stairs when you were a kid? Remember watching in delight as it walked down the steps? The ETC is kind of like that, except there are a lot of springs. Remember our friend NADH, the cellular delivery man? Well, he's got a package. It's some high-energy electrons. These will serve as the spring in our spring and stair analogy. The electrons, like the spring, travel down each stair of the ETC. At each level, they combine ADP with phosphates to create ATP through a special corkscrew-shaped protein called ATP synthase. How it works is that ATP synthase turns, combining the phosphates with the ADP. Think back to recharging the battery, or reloading the gun. This happens here, so imagine that you're walking a spring downstairs. At each step, there is an empty gun. When you reach that step, you load the gun. But when you load the gun, you have to spin the barrel, which is ATP synthase. Then the spring reaches the bottom. At the bottom, oxygen, the final electron acceptor, lies in wait. Its favorite food is electrons. It wants to eat these electrons so it can become water. We breathe out this water as water vapor. Think about when you huff on a window. That fog is the water from the ATC. The entire ETC process makes a whopping 34 ATP. So how much ATP do we actually get from all of this? Well, if we take the 2 ATP we got from glycolysis and add it to the 2 ATP from the Krebs cycle, and add that to the 34 ATP that we got from the ETC, our net total is 38 ATP for glucose. And now here comes the big, fat review. This is the whole story from glucose to water. We start with glucose, a sugar that comes from bread. The glucose is chopped into 2 pyruvic acids in a process called glycolysis. The 2 pyruvic acids are combined with oxygen to create acetyl-CoA, which combines with oxaloacetic acid to form citric acid, which loses its carbons as carbon dioxide to turn ADP into ATP, and consequentially becomes oxaloacetic acid, which combines with acetyl-CoA, and so on, in a process called the Krebs or citric acid cycle. Meanwhile, NAD is being combined with some electrons and 1 hydrogen to create NADH. NADH delivers those electrons at the top of the electron transport chain, where they travel down each level to phosphorylate ADP through a special corkscrew-shaped protein called ATP synthase. When they reach the bottom, they are combined with oxygen to create water, which we breathe out. The final reaction is as follows. Glucose plus O2 yields CO2 plus H2O, and, let's not forget, 38 ATP. So that's cellular respiration. I hope you like it.